Hey, welcome to the show. I have a special guest joining me today, Jordan Mederich of Dropfunnels. I've actually known him for several years now, and I'm very excited to have you on the show to talk to you today, Jordan. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Very cool.
So before we kind of get into our interesting topic today, we're going to really get into taking crypto and digital asset payments for an online business. But before we kind of get into the weeds on that, Jordan, please tell everybody a little bit about Dropfunnels, why you started it, and kind of the space that you serve through that business.
Sure. So Dropfunnels is a sales funnel and marketing platform that leverages the power of WordPress to help you to get fast pages, fast ranking in Google for organic traffic. And we've got great support, a lot of things that just matter a lot to us. And I know you've been a Dropfunnels user as well, so you probably experienced some of those things. But for those who maybe need a little bit more context, we help people to sell more stuff through a concept called a sales funnel, which is essentially a step-by-step process of helping people to make decisions and to increase the overall cart value through an order process. So if you think, I like to think of sales funnels being the opposite of e-commerce. So e-commerce, you add all your stuff to your cart, then you got 20 different things in there, then you check out, right? Then you're done. Okay. With sales funnels, you'll typically take, and this is great for courses or consulting or mostly digital products, as most of our customers are selling digital goods. You'll sell one particular product, but then you're adding on order bumps and upsells post decision, the purchase decision to increase the overall cart value. And so we see that for people who have one primary product that you want to sell, instead of just selling that one thing, you're able to double, triple, sometimes quadruple your cart value and the value of that particular customer by adding ancillary products and services on for like a one-click upsell. So I built that. We just had our third birthday, so we've made it this far. Wow. We've survived, which is cool. And it's really been a journey, not just of solving my own problem, which is that I wanted a better way to sell online than what currently existed and still exists in the marketplace.
Okay.
Lots of problems with the various platforms that I'd used in the past, and I was duct taping it all together, and it was so hard to build. I decided I need to solve my own problem. But it's also been a kind of and I think the crypto conversation is an example of this, that it's been in kind of like a sandbox for me to explore new ideas and to leverage new technologies, especially in whether it's payments or order flows or, buyer psychology, and building those features into the platform, mostly for my own selfish use, but then it ends up being available for everyone to use at the same time.
Okay. And I have been a Dropfunnels client for several years, and it's easy to use, and I'm not a WordPress programmer by any means, and I've built all my own stuff that I need, which is great. And I think it was probably a year ago even, I first found out that you were going to take digital asset crypto payments. So what's the backstory on that?
Yeah. So obviously I had quite a bit of experience from 2021 through the bull run that obviously concluded end of 22. And it was in January, I think, of 21 where I figured out what MetaMask was, what is a coin, how does it work, how do I convert fiat into that, and ended up really diving deep into that just for fun. And then got really into staking, liquidity providing, lots of, I didn't really do a whole lot of buying and holding coins. I kind of like being the picks and shovels instead of the one chasing for gold. So we built some tools and training around crypto as well. But I had this thought, it's like, why is it that there's so much interest in the world of crypto, and there are some even e-commerce platforms that you can collect cryptocurrency to sell your stuff. And obviously that was a huge push at that time, but no one was doing that as far as sales funnels were concerned. So we partnered with a company called Coin Payments, who had a huge infrastructure for collecting, for collecting crypto on an individual basis. And so we kind of came together and discovered a method where you could sell crypto with one-click upsells as well. So you could sell it one time and then go through an actual sales funnel using cryptocurrency. And then I forget when we launched that. It was maybe maybe early part of 22. So maybe a year ago, something or around those lines. And there was some very obvious interest up front. It's certainly slowed as the market tanked, for people using that individual subset. But I think that especially as we push into the other side of this recession and into the next bull market, I think adoption for cryptocurrency payments is going to be huge, because I think, especially with what's going on right now with SVB and the shakeup, that now fiat is not as safe as a lot of people thought. And it's as much as a house of cards now as it was back in the Lehman Brothers days. And maybe some other safeguards are in place. Maybe they're trying to, be safe, or, who knows, but it's not as stable as we hope and wish that it was. And so I think that's going to push a lot of people far more into accepting cryptocurrency as legitimate payments for virtually everything. And I think it'll be synonymous, whether it's a stable coin or, like an XRP type of deal.
Now you've been letting your clients use this to sell to their clients. So Dropfunnels isn't necessarily selling anything directly via crypto, correct?
Correct. So as a software platform, we're just taking fiat. We always have, primarily because we found through the process of setting this up that the mass user adoption still isn't quite there yet for it to be a super tantalizing way to pay for things. Right. And there are complications when it comes to subscriptions with cryptocurrencies, because you would need to sign, right? You have to digitally sign each transaction. I heard that someone figured out a way to do that. I forget who it was or how they did it, but accepting, it's obviously very, very complex when you have a subscription model. So it works really well for one-time payments or buying through a sales funnel process or e-commerce, not so much for ongoing recur.
I brought that up I was going to ask you some questions that you're probably going to have to answer on behalf of your clients, because you might not have had as much experience. But I was just kind of curious what the market has sort of told you in terms of like comfort with using a wallet. And you sort of just answered that adoption isn't there. But have any of your clients, especially those maybe in a more techie market, have they had success taking payments through crypto, or are we just too early?
I think there have been some, but certainly we're definitely not at the stage yet, but I think in the next 2 years we will, where taking fiat and crypto concurrently will be of equal value in the mindset of the consumer. I think we're not quite there. I think right now that really the balance is between pay now or use like Klarna or Affirm or some of these other like pay as you go type platforms. Those two things are becoming very acceptable and synonymous in a checkout process. And I think users are very willing to leverage some of those tools, even if it means you're going to be paying interest ongoing on payments. But now you can literally buy a pair of shoes and pay it off over 6 or 12 months or whatever. That's just like these incredible tools that are coming out. But I think until a vast majority of buyers actually have a crypto wallet and have made that transition from adding fiat in there and having that available to use, until that happens, cryptocurrency as like a mainstay, like, okay, I'm just going to use, we've accepted crypto even for like some of our high ticket programs. Some people are like, hey, I've got a bunch of USDC. And so we'll say, all right, here's the wallet address, send it over there. It's done that fast. We get paid that fast. It's beautiful. I wish we could do that for everything and everyone. And so maybe it's worth exploring in a separate part of the conversation, but I've been thinking about some ways to help increase the user adoption through crypto by kind of bridging that gap between how technical it is currently and making it as easy as signing up for like a Venmo account is really what it should be. Agreed.
And the interesting value proposition to your clients and ultimately to Dropfunnels themselves is that you don't have to pay these credit card fees. If you're doing a lot of volume, let's say you do 100,000, let's say you do $1 million a month, you're doing well. That's like $3,000 to $5,000 a month. That's like one of your employees. Like that's a person you could hire, or you could pay MasterCard and Visa these trends. So did you see that is that compelling at all for like your clients to accept crypto to get out of the credit card fee thing?
If people knew the value of moving to a more crypto-based payment solution, I think it would be massive mass use adoption, because as you're aware, all of these credit cards are, although we have merchant accounts with them and, all that. And so I'm knocking on wood, please don't strike me dead for any of these comments, but the fees are continuing to increase. Stripe just came out and said they're not even going to refund if there's on the fees for a chargeback. So refunds, you don't get those fees. If you give a refund back to the customer, you eat those fees. If you get a chargeback, there's fees on top of that. And even if you win now, you don't get that money back. So all of the rules, especially for merchants or anyone accepting payment of any kind, the fees are increasing pretty rapidly. And two, all the rules are hedged in the favor of the consumer. And look, I'm a consumer too. I want privacy. I want I want to be able to buy things when I want and have protection if someone were to steal some of those things. But it's leaning so far against merchants that I think the push to crypto payments is going to be much greater, because if in case people aren't aware, no one can charge you back with crypto, which is huge. We don't get we get like one charge back a month, right? Or whatever. It's not a big deal, but still it's just like you have to respond to it. So you're investing money in someone to respond to it, and you're losing it's just a huge expensive disaster. But there's really no refunds. Technically, I guess you could choose to give a refund, no forced refunds. There's no chargebacks. The fees usually, especially through like coin payments or whatever, and we don't add any fees on top for us. We just provide it as a service. It's like 0.5% versus 3% plus 30 cents or whatever. So
and Amex like 5%. I mean, it can be.
Yeah. And if you're in a high risk category, you could be up in the almost 8% plus 50% of your funds held. That's the beauty of decentralized money, right? Which we've seen in the last year. We've seen the absolute beauty of crypto and some of the best coming out of people and ideas. And we've also seen the absolute worst of people and the worst ideas and the worst things happening. So we know these polar opposites in the market. I think it's going to come to a deciding factor that I think we do need a little bit more regulation to help protect some consumers, but the benefits to merchants it's off the chain. Like if we could only take crypto, I would jump on that boat in a second if I knew that the conversion rates would stay the same.
Now you bring up this point that the rules or the current system favors the consumer over the merchant. I'd actually argue that there's a third party involved in that, which is the service provider, Stripes of the world. And I would say that the system is absolutely rigged in their favor. One of the reasons I found out about Dropfunnels accepting crypto was that my Stripe account got shut down. I hadn't done anything. I had just changed the name of the offer from an old offer to Crypto Cougars, which was what we had at the time. And that keyword triggered a flag that shut the account down immediately. I hadn't done anything. I hadn't sold anything different. We had no chargebacks. I mean, the offer was like a couple weeks old, and they held my money for like a while until they actually magically changed their policy to be pro crypto. So imagine this world where I don't have this third party, the PayPal or the Venmo or the Stripe, that gets to decide whether or not my business is worthy enough of me transacting directly with another person. That's not really their role. Now I get it, in this world of chargebacks and fraud, it's an issue, but I still feel like there was no clarity from Stripe about that, although I hope they watch this video. And when that kind of thing happens, there is no recourse. You can't call them. Like I was like on the blacklist. So my messaging directly to Stripe was taken away, and my calling. So it's like, I just had to wait. So that's another thing I love about the digital asset crypto space, is that I can create direct relationship with my client, my buyer, and I don't need permission from some third party to be able to transact with them.
Not to mention the speed, how quickly it comes across within seconds. Man, I still, even to this day, if I have to send a wire more than $20,000, I don't have a close local bank. So I've got to drive half an hour to Wells Fargo to go sign off on stuff. It takes half my day to go send a wire every single time. And it's just, look, I get they're trying to like avoid, money laundering issues. And I get that, right? There's legitimacy behind all of that. But even with what we just experienced, even this past weekend with the bank shutdowns, is that like, what's the benefit to all of that? Like if the house of cards is as weak as it seemingly is right now and has been, what's the benefit for all this additional red tape, all these laws, all these regulations, and all these protective measures, if it's not actually going to be a very powerful, strong house built on a rock, right?
Right.
So, I think I know I get kind of esoteric about some of these topics and fired up on both sides of the coin, because I think I've definitely felt like something has to change, and just wanting to be part of that change means even experimenting into some different things, and
Yeah.
and I think as soon as we can get into a world where the concept of a cryptocurrency wallet is even understood, or 50% of the world knowing what it is, I think as millennials get a little bit older, they're far more, younger generations seem to be far more adaptive to new technologies.
Yeah.
So
we went through this
it.
when banks created banking apps, and it was like, what? I'm going to pay a bill through my phone? That sounds crazy. And
Right.
you downloaded the app and you created a login and you played around with them and you figured it out. Like, I don't think wallets are all that different. I think there's more functionality in a banking app than there is in a wallet.
Yeah. And I mean, or even just being on the internet for the first time, or using email. Why would I send a letter through the internet? What is that? Right.
We're going to have a
And
video call. I'm going to talk to you on video through my computer.
Yeah. The fact that you and I are talking in real time on a video is shocking. Like,
I still think that's amazing, especially we're far away from each other and there is no delay. Like, it is.
No, not at all.
Think about, and I live in the middle of the woods, like in the country, like all the little places it has to go through to get up to you in Minnesota.
At the speed of light, virtually.
Yeah, you can even talk to somebody. I love talking to people like in South Africa or Australia, where you're like, it is far and we still have no delay. Like, that's like magic.
So that, I think it's one of the purest forms of magic. I would totally agree. And I think that, what is it, Moore's law, that technology will double every 2 years or whatever that is. So within probably the next 2 cycles, and within the next 4 years, the development around and adoption around cryptocurrency will double twice. And so if I were to guess, I'd say maybe 15 or 20% of at least the US population understands crypto enough to do something with it. Like, they know how to go buy Bitcoin if they want to go do that. Right. Or they could kind of transact. So that needs to double twice to establish kind of like some mass adoption. And I think at that point, it will not only become a really cool alternative to payments, I think it's going to be a requirement for payments. I
agree.
I think at some point it's going to be, if you can't accept crypto, they're going to be like, I don't want to do business with you. In the same way that right now, if you only accept crypto, they're like, I can't really do business with you.
I think that label's going to go away, to be honest. I think the word crypto has gotten this connotation to it.
Yeah. Digital payments.
So, but once they just rebrand it as the same thing, blockchain payments using digital assets, then all of a sudden it will be like this great thing that you're not scared of. We just wanted you to be scared of it when we didn't control it. Now that we're going to manage the rails, we will then. But one thing that you brought up about being forced to accept it, I think that's going to happen because of the question that you brought up earlier around subscriptions. That right now, when you use a credit card, I have to make that agreement with you because I have this third party, right? Well, what if the agreement with us was managed by a smart contract and we used a streaming payment where instead of paying you once a month, I literally paid you 1/30 of the payment every day? I mean, the blockchain storage world with Filecoin is already doing this to manage distributed data storage. And so if your phone bill or your water bill, your electric bill is now done streaming, you're going to have to pay with a wallet because only wallets can support smart contract type arrangements. So that would be cool. Would Dropfunnels be excited if you didn't have to do the counterparty risk of paying up front or getting paid at the end of the month? You got paid every day.
If it wasn't for the per transaction fee,
it wouldn't be that with,
it wouldn't be, right? If it wasn't for that existing now, I'd take daily payments any day of the week. The only issue, and this has nothing to do with digital payments or fiat or any comparison, but there is, especially in the subscription world, there is like this, I'm seeing this large push away from users wanting auto build subscriptions, and they're really resistant to that. So you'll actually find, if you have a business, you can as easily sell a $3,000 package one time, as easily as selling $100 per month thing that has the same value. So it's harder for us to sell a $297 a month ultimate plan or whatever. It's harder to get and keep that customer with consistent recurring payments than it would to be like, hey, we'll just give it to you for a year for $3,000. It's actually easier for us to do that. So and we see that with the fluctuations of streaming companies, that you'll see their numbers wildly go up and down. We're talking about like $7 to $14 a month. And people are like canceling and being cautious of subscriptions and those types of things as well. So yeah, but as far as the concept of daily payments, that could actually be really interesting, right? Because that's essentially all a subscription is it's a per diem rate billed every 30 days, right, or whatever it is.
I actually think it might change how we look at these businesses, because right now, because we have this worldview of like dealing with credit cards and it needing to be monthly and needing to be this thing you sign up for a long time, I'm going to just guess that there's a group of people who are like, I would love to use Dropfunnels, but I don't necessarily need it for a long time. So they find something else. This new group of people who could come in and just pay for what you need and then leave, I think it's going to change how businesses work, and not just online things, but like think about like a hotel room even. Like right now we have to pay for 24 hours at a time. What if you could, this is kind of a bad analogy because I'm not advocating hourly hotel rental rates, but let's just say that you just sort of paid for what you need and you just got billed like every hour until you leave, or like a vacation rental or a boat rental. Right now, like you have even a parking meter, you have to sometimes estimate like how many hours you're going to park. I'm like, I don't know. This streaming payment model could drastically change just how we interact with other businesses. And you just sort of pay for what you need or use versus these like credit card friendly, like bigger chunks.
Yeah. And I think as long as, say, like what may be inappropriately called the master chef contract or whatever you call it for a smart contract, that would be
okay,
facilitating a large portion of even sub contracts underneath it. The user right now, if you were to interact with something that would take recurring payments, especially through crypto, without you having to confirm that ongoing, you'd have to have some control to cancel that within a particular function. Right. And even, we've seen, you and I have seen enough rug pulls and enough scams and enough people just taking the cash and dipping out, like with no transparency to that. I think as soon as like those contracts become clear, like even I was in the crypto space for like really deep for a long time, and I still have trouble reading some of these contracts to understand what does this actually mean, and can they pull it out? Could it be a honeypot? And it's like no average person is going to go read these things. There has to be clear transparency on exactly how do you start it, what are the terms, what are the gas fees that might be associated with it, and then how do I cancel a subscription like that?
Right. My understanding is it would come from like your phone company, like Verizon would do this, right? And you trust Verizon, so I don't have to necessarily read the smart contract. I'm going to assume Verizon is setting this up, without scamming me. And then the money goes into escrow. So I have to, somehow I am contributing the $30 a month, but it's only getting paid to Verizon on a schedule based on some kind of predetermined condition. So if I decide to cancel, I get back the money that's in escrow, but Verizon doesn't have to worry that I'm not going to be able to have the money because it's been put aside. I mean, this is part of this idea called atomic settlement, where both parties put up the fund. Like, this is probably how houses will get paid for. Both parties put up the funds. It's locked into a smart contract escrow. And then when certain conditions are met, this, the exchange of property rights goes through.
Yeah, that's brilliant, especially as it relates to subscriptions, for sure.
Right. So you have to kind of prove, I think, like if let's say I'm going to sign up for your thing, I have to prove I have at least a month's worth of funds, but I'm not going to pay you all of it because you have to still deliver what you're going to promise to deliver me for a month. And so we do this trickle. It's a great way to get out of counterparty risk, because now I'm not having to trust that you're going to do something if I pay you in advance, and you're not going to have to trust that I'm going to be good for it if you give me the service in advance. We just do this.
But again, wouldn't that return us back to a centralized body that would have to regulate that interior escrow situation?
Smart contract does. The same way like a escrow for buying a house. I mean, do you feel
that would
like
have to, it would require the unification of both parties to say like, okay, if these conditions are met, that have to be automated in some way that the conditions are like guaranteed, right? So protection on both sides. I love that. I love that concept.
Are you familiar with Filecoin? Do you know what they are? They're
I've not heard
a
of them.
distributed data storage network. So if you have tons of data, like terabytes and petabytes of data, and you need it stored somewhere, you can use a distributed network, like a BitTorrent type idea, where it's not just on one computer. But you need to know that that data is there. So they have smart contracts set up that every single day, each data storage provider has to verify that they still have that data. And once that verification hits the smart contract, it's all automated, then the funds for that day's payment are released. So yes, there are conditions set up. And this is how you could have a distributed data storage network without needing like a company to manage it. You just program the smart contract to do that.
Yeah. And then it just comes down to the trust of the contract or who wrote it and what validators exist.
Now,
right?
Like Filecoin company, Protocol Labs, that builds that stuff, like they won't be in business very long if their smart contracts aren't. And this is where I want to get away from this word crypto, where it's like these anonymous cartoon character on Twitter people creating these things. To these are more businesses serving the business community, where you would have a sales call with the sales guy and you would know who the CEO is. And these are legitimate businesses that are using digital assets and smart contracts to interact with their clients.
It's amazing how critical it will be for a word that is synonymous with a positive experience will be required for mass adoption. Because you think of the word crypto, the first word that I would connect that to would be cryptic, meaning like, I don't understand it, I don't know it, and it's not very transparent. So I'd fully agree that, especially like if I could you tell your mom about it? It's like the mom test. Could you explain it to your mom in a way that she'd not only understand it, but would be excited to use it? And in many cases, it's just like a glossy eyed, like you start talking about crypto, but it's like, no, if I say digital payments, even blockchain, I think that people are like, well, what is a blockchain? But we can understand what a digital ledger is, right? Digital market makers and some of those concepts. So we just need to help ease in. And I think the founders of crypto probably could have taken a copywriting course or gotten some insight there to help.
I think crypto has terrible copywriters. The NFT thing was a terrible copywriting name.
Yeah.
I like to explain it just as this next version of the internet of value means that, Jordan, I could actually email you money. Right now, I can't. I can email you an invoice. I could tell you I want to pay you. We could have an agreement. But right now, the actual exchange of funds goes through banks and takes several days. But now I can email you the rights, because that's what this is all about. This accounting ledger is about the rights associated with owning an asset. If I owned some Bitcoin on the blockchain, it means I have the right to possess it. Like I have the right to rent it. I have the right to sell it. I have all of these rights associated. Same thing with gold. Like if I have gold, could hoard it in my safe. I could sell it to you. I could melt it down. I could rent it. I mean, there's all these sort of rights associated with property ownership. And so with blockchain, I'm never actually giving you the asset. What I'm doing is I'm giving you the right associated with owning that asset, which means you could now sell it.
Like a stock.
Correct. And we transfer those rights now kind of through the internet, through email, through all these different ways we've been communicating. And I think everyone at this point understands email, and they also understand you can't ever send money through the internet until now.
You can barely send images. You can't send videos. I mean, they all take these intermediaries, right? But I couldn't agree more. And actually, I think that's, I'm sure someone will steal the idea, or it's already in progress and whatnot for the next crypto market. But one idea I had for an app just to increase adoption would be to have kind of a KYC process, or generally it'd be an app. It'd be slightly centralized, but the goal would be to get people to their own crypto infrastructure, but a very simple process that helps them set up their wallet really securely and easily.
Okay.
And to get fiat money in, and it can instantly transfer into a stable coin, and just to do that process automatically, so that it just facilitates that. And you can do peer-to-peer in the same way that you would Venmo, right? But just making it easy to do that. I want to send 100 USDC to this person. Okay. The beauty is that with that, you could generate yield through just parking cash, in the same way that, look at Starbucks. They're one of the biggest hedge funds in the world, and no one even knows it, because they have so much money deposited in their app that they're able to leverage that cash using essentially fractional reserve banking in a coffee app, right?
Really? What do you mean by that?
So I forget that, we should look it up, but there's something like $100 billion currently inside,
Like a sort of
from users,
gift card credits kind of idea.
just people funding their Starbucks account so they can go spend it later. So
Oh, so
they're
it's
one of the,
functioning like a wallet.
yes, exactly.
Ah,
But there's no benefit to, there's no peer-to-peer. You can only buy coffee. You can only buy Starbucks stuff, right?
I can't
But
send you money to buy your own coffee.
I don't think so. I mean, if
Okay.
that probably would require a far deeper KYC process for Starbucks that they wouldn't want to undertake, but it's that same concept, and Starbucks is already doing it, right? Where it's like you're putting in fiat. In that case, it's only to do business with Starbucks. But you know, what if there was like benefits of yield for parking your cash, but also peer-to-peer payments in the same way that Venmo would, but just quick, easy.
Yeah, like say you're an employer and you want to give all of your employees like $50 on their Starbucks thing, that would be a peer-to-peer payment, right?
Yeah, right. And gosh, I can't tell you the hoops we have to jump through. I have an affiliate program and we have our internal team as well. I have 2 different payment systems that we have to navigate because of various reasons. And PayPal doesn't work with this, and you have to wire every month. I have to input the cash from a wire into an account to pay affiliates out. And it's like, and it takes a week and a half to do. Why don't we just do it all through digital payments, and it'd be so much simpler? Just people not having crypto, right?
Okay, so it's your affiliate participants would be like, what is this? I get it. Okay.
Yeah, I think a certain percentage of them would be excited about, you know, crypto payments in that way. And I think, again, we'll get there.
Now, I'm curious, as a business based in the United States, trying to navigate this crypto world, do you feel like it is harder than it needs to be to get this digital asset stuff off the ground because of regulations or lack of?
Only as a consequence of users being unfamiliar and uncomfortable with it. So okay. I don't see it. Actually, I see far fewer issues with us being willing or able to accept crypto and even encourage people to do that. It's that, and again, I haven't invested enough into really huge campaigns to be like, hey, pay in crypto and you get 20% off or something, right? Some incentive to do so. So the difficulty isn't really on our side from an infrastructure perspective.
Okay.
Reporting your tax perspective, accounting, it's none of those things. It's only people knowing how to do that, right?
So does coin payments work for people in the US?
Yeah. Yep. Well, it'll work for anyone, right?
Okay. I went to go check it out when I was preparing for this, and for some reason I thought they weren't going to let me in because I was in the US.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they're worldwide. I mean, there could be something that I'm not familiar with, but provided that coin payments can facilitate it, and that's the goal.
And I don't think it's a tech issue. There's just the banking system in the US is not all that friendly for connecting banks to crypto things.
Correct. Yeah. And so that's the one regulatory thing that government bodies would need to facilitate better. Okay. Would be like, okay, it's okay for you to take cash and go convert it to digital currency. That's okay with us now. And as soon as that happens, I think a lot more people do it.
When I first got into crypto and didn't really know anything about it, I tried to buy an NFT with a debit card and a credit card, and I have quite a selection of both. And every single one of them was declined. And I would call and be like, hey, I'm putting this charge through. Can you please approve it? And they're like, no. I was like, okay, that's my money. I'm telling you, you have my authorization to do that. And they're like, no, we can't. It's a crypto thing. I'm like, this is my money. Like, how can you tell me what I'm allowed to spend my money on? And every single one, I ended up having to create a new bank account with a different bank that would actually allow me to do that kind of thing.
It's shocking. So it's like when even people like you who are very well versed in this technology, if they're even trying to scare you off from doing it to protect themselves, it's like, that's what's got to change.
But I was willing to fully waive any liability on the part of the bank. And they were like, this is non-negotiable. You are not allowed to spend your money on this NFT. Now, in hindsight, it probably was actually helpful because I'm not sure that NFT is worth very much now. But at the time, still, I could go buy lotto tickets or go down to a casino or something. So it's not really up to the bank to decide what I can and can't spend my money on. So
yeah, or even the fact that if you wanted to pull out all of your money in cash, it would take 3 to 10 business days, right?
If they even let you, depending on how much.
If they let you.
Yeah.
Right.
Crazy. So let's talk about this week. So we've seen 3 banks become nationalized, which is crazy. FDIC has taken them over. We also have this thing going on in the UK with SVP UK, and Credit Suisse might collapse. So what do you think is going on in the world of banking? Have you been watching this at all?
Yeah, not as deeply as a function of me not getting depressed, but just topically enough to be informed.
Fair enough. It's not exactly an uplifting topic. So.
But yeah, it's more so, and I'm less concerned. Well, I wasn't a customer, so I guess there's no reason to be concerned about that individual instance, but just about the potential for contagion. You know, it's like I since Thursday evening when all the rumblings kind of started happening, I saw some tweets from insiders, and I'm like, what are you guys talking about? You know, and Friday the whole thing hit, and then starting to think, man, should I go to the bank and just pull cash or like deleverage? Try to get every account under 250,000 because we have accounts over that. And it's, you know, just to ensure that you're insured. It seemed to me externally though, that a really crappy situation, I don't really have a whole lot of faith in government in general, or their ability to enact, especially as it relates to financial regulations. But I think they did a great job on this. That's my opinion. I think that they executed extremely quickly. They swooped in. Then they said, you will be made whole. You will have your money as soon as Monday. All these banks to participate in the banking system in the United States, they're paying into a fund to facilitate that FDIC insurance. And insurance is only good when it's paid out, right? That's the test of whether insurance is good or not.
Not much of a point to it otherwise.
So it's really not faith in our banking system, because I think that's what failed, but it is faith in the FDIC system, which I'm hoping, for the benefit of everyone who was potentially harmed through this, that when that happens, that they have safeguards that could even subvert additional contagion that could happen. But I'm also a little ticked off at the CEO selling 11% of his portfolio right before the whole crash happened. All this insider trading. How did the Pelosi's have $150 million net worth and they make $136,000 a year or something, right? It's like all this insider information, you know, is kind of concerning.
Agreed.
Concerning at best.
So sort of knowing that we sort of see this chaos in the fiat world, and that it makes a logical case for money that you actually own, possess. I mean, that's sort of the idea of not your keys, not your crypto. If you had all of your money, even your business accounts, if you had the keys to all of that, it doesn't really matter if your bank goes down. Like, that kind of sucks, but you don't lose your money. So what was your idea for how to make digital payments easier for the consumer that's not very tech focused?
Yeah. So to edify what you just mentioned, it's like, what if all of our cash reserves was held up in a crypto wallet in cold storage? I'd be like sitting back, smiling with a drink in my hand, right? And not concerned about any of these issues, because it wouldn't affect you, because it's yours and you have access to it. And provided that it's maybe a stable coin, but even USDC depegged for a bit. I'm assuming it's back up. I haven't checked it again, but depegged.
You would still own it. Now, it's just because something's volatile maybe that day. It's one thing to go to the bank and they're like, sorry, your funds are gone. We've lent them to someone else.
That's like that's a rug pull. That's
right.
Yeah. But yeah, to answer the latter part of your question, I think it's in reference to the app that I was mentioning earlier about making a very Venmo-like experience to help people to get onboarded easily, to understand that when you create this account, it automatically creates a wallet for you.
Got it.
Not needing MetaMask, not needing
no seed phrase. Is that like one of the things you want to say goodbye to, or what?
I think that needs to go. I think it does. I think it's a very powerful protective measure.
Okay.
But there's got to be something better, because if you lose that phrase, you're done. Like, just everything's, and stuff like that can happen, right? Whereas like, so we need a seed phrase with a backup plan, essentially. In the same way that you'd have a password with a backup plan, 2-factor authorization, or
I mean, there's now these authentication apps that could kind of function.
Sure. Yeah. In the same way that, I've got my Trezor right here. Every time I want to do a buy or sell or something or there's a ledger, I sit there and I approve it. Right. And it all happens through the wallet, but I'm approving it on a physical device. And so provided that people don't have to I think it's just a big behavior modification to say like, hey, I have to save this seed phrase. If I ever lose it, all my money is potentially irreparably gone, right? That's not safe. And I think there's a lot of really potentially stupid people in the world who would like can't even be trusted with that, right? There need to be some protective measure to save them from themselves, which is losing the seed phrase or just being foolish with that information or sharing it.
There's also challenges like, what if something happened to me and my beneficiaries get this cold wallet? They're like, I don't know what to do, or
Right.
they don't have like the seed phrase. I might be very diligent with it, but not very good at preparing my, descendants if something happened to me and what to do with it. So there are these businesses emerging that will be custodians of digital assets, and that's all they do. And that exists in the stock market world. Like if I buy a stock on E-Trade, I never get the paperwork. Like a custodian takes care of it, and they're trusted to do that. So I think we're going to see digital asset custodians take on.
Yeah. So I think that's exactly what needs to happen. There needs to be a very simple, almost like as easy as signing up for a social network with particular, whatever documentation or whatever, but very quick and efficient signing up for one of these accounts. That wallet and the seed phrase is, I think, backed by a third-party custodial position where they have the world's greatest safeguards to protect that information, and they are incentivized to protect that. And even backup wallets, like if one is compromised, it instantly transfers all your money to another wallet and you're safe, right? It's like we need technology to automate the process of what we're currently needing to do, which is like seed phrases and the MetaMask and the installations. And I also think chains need to go away. I think the multi-chain aspect should just be universalized to one. Like there should be, we've got Binance, you've got Phantom, you've got Ethereum, you've got Bitcoin is its own thing. And even transferring between those different chains can be problematic. So I think it's one will rise above the rest. I'm sure the rest will fall away, but getting in easy, ensuring that it's safe, having some third party who knows what they're doing, ensuring that it's safe, and audited and, but then again, it's like, I'm sure people listening to this are saying, well, that just sends us back to where we are right now, right? Which is a third party who would have full control over your money, unless it's a multi-sig wallet, right? And they do something and you sign something each time.
Yeah, it could be like a safety deposit box model, where, if I've got a ton of gold and I live in an apartment or I'm a digital nomad, I'm not going to carry my gold with me at all times. I need some place to store it, but it has to be set up in a way that you can't confiscate it from me and you can't steal it. So, safe deposit box, sometimes you need the bank and me to go in and do the key, right? I mean, that's sort of multi-sig idea that you can't steal my assets or have access to them unless I agree. So you can't, there's no confiscation.
Yeah, I think that's a great play. And even just, I think there's mental fatigue that comes through decision making. So people, if your goal is not about like in the investment side, right? It's around making payments, which is like, I collect this one coin, I pay in this coin, and we all agree that this has a standard of value, and some type of universal backing as far as it relates to, I'm not sure how to solve around that either, but yeah, I think really, in my opinion, it needs to be one very simple to use process with potentially multi-sig third party company kind of overseeing that and making sure that it's stable and secure and protected and you're not doing seed phrases, and that there's one coin on one chain that you would interact with, and maybe there's some yield that could be, placed on it for, it's easy in the crypto world to get, 10, 20, 30% APY pretty fairly safely, in most cases, right? So even if you were to go really, really low and, invest some of those funds, it kind of becomes a similar version to what we're talking about with the current system in place. But being digital, there's just so many benefits to that.
I agree. And the real use functionality to me and all this digital asset stuff isn't really the investment side at all. It's the velocity of money within a business. I mean, think about how much more quickly you could pay your people, your suppliers, make investments if you didn't have to wait several days to get the money each time.
It would eliminate tons of time, tons of headache.
The whole wiring money
Especially-
business. Yeah.
Yeah. Never dealing with any of that would just be a huge load off of my brain. It'd make stuff for the team easier. I think for customers, I think it serves them better too, because there's, you know,
If you
there's
had
just, like, benefits on both
international,
sides.
yeah, if you have international employees, then you have this sort of exchange rate business and fees for cross-border payments. So there's a lot of benefits to digital assets for that as well.
Yeah. And I mean, there's nothing but benefits, especially in the business sector. I guess my only hope would be that as it became maybe slightly regulated, that we don't end up where we are now, which is that all of these payments are so heavily weighted towards the consumer that merchants are just often down creek without a paddle, like your money getting locked up, or them shutting down your account because one word was changed on a product name. Or I remember you hit me up on Facebook Messenger, like, what do I do? And I was like, oh, well, here's some ideas. But I think we do need a little bit more regulation, but not so far to the point where merchants just start to suffer, because that's where I think economic growth slows to a complete crawl.
That's why I do love the smart contract idea, is that it can be transparent to both sides. And we make an agreement that, all right, I'll pay you $30 a month if you do this. And you're like, okay, I'm going to take $30 a month and I'm going to do this. And we facilitate that exchange between us. Right now you have this merchant provider who could just change the rules at any time. And banks even can do that, saying, yeah, we're not going to allow you to pay Jordan next month because we've decided that his business is now some criteria we hadn't shared with you previously. So,
and they're really not, they're protecting themselves. They're not even protecting consumers.
Correct. I think all regulation is designed to protect the incumbent in that industry.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So, but we do need, I know someone who lost $2 million in the Anchor protocol collapse when that depegged. $2 million. And people who lost, less than that, but still substantial amounts. Like, what's the protection that exists there for them? There's nothing.
I mean, I do think Terra was taken out in a very orchestrated, consistent manner.
Sure seemed that way.
That didn't happen randomly. It took a lot of money to do what they did that day. Now people suffered, but I don't think, and you might fault Do Kwon for being a hot-headed kid and not having the experience to run something that large, but that didn't happen on its own, my take.
For sure. Yeah. Well, it takes two to tango, as they say.
Yeah. And same thing with FTX. I think Sam Bankman-Fried should have had no business running that business. And the fact that he was given so much money to run that business, but that was also taped down, which is interesting.
Yeah, I think there may be more of these, right? But it seemed like it was a purging.
There's a lesson. Be careful if you decide to issue a stable coin in US dollars, which FTX was about to do.
That's what you think
Yeah, the way the US money supply has worked until recently actually is that the Fed issues dollars. And if you try to issue dollars without being a member of the Federal Reserve banking system, there will be consequences. UST, I was a big Terra person. I just love the ecosystem. I love their vibe. And one of the things that happened 2 weeks before that happened was they released a product called Alice Finance, which allowed you to spend UST on a credit card in retail. It was an off-ramp. You could make your UST yield, you could make your Luna and very easily turn to UST, and it was now spendable. That was huge because the ramps on and off are very controlled by the banking system. 2 weeks later, there's out.
There's always a bigger fish, isn't there?
Right. And it's because, I think the banking system didn't care if we played with NFTs and made DeFi yield with each other. But the minute you start to make that real dollars in the real world, that's a different ball game altogether.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's like a credit system in a video game until
exactly
you're paid out in cash, right?
Correct. And the Fed likes to control the dollar system. So the interesting thing about all that is then how does UST fit into this? Why is Tether allowed to do what they want? So.
Lots of money in lobbying. Boy, isn't that it's always the people in power who have that opportunity. But yeah, I think
Okay.
I think overall, there's already huge benefits for merchants for this to happen. So when it does, we're all going to benefit.
Okay.
On the consumer side, making it easier for people to dive into that, helping them to understand it and make it very non-technical. Trust me, as a founder of a platform, the number one issue that we have, as almost maybe any software business does, is churn from people who don't know what they're doing, right?
Yeah.
Which is the biggest liability. So if people don't, like, what's a seed phrase? I have no synapse connection between that phrase, that idea, and somewhere else in my world, because it's not a password. You'd have a separate password from that, right? So just user adoption into this, benefits to do so. I mean, look, if you could save 2.5% as a merchant on, or 3% or whatever it happens to be, and not pay those particular fees, you could pass that on as incentives to consumers to buy from you. And it's shocking what people do for an incentive, any kind of tiny discount. We're doing it right now with cash discounts, right?
And what's going to change, I think, the game a lot is Visa and MasterCard are heavy into blockchain stuff. Imagine I can pay with my credit card, so I can do the impulse buy where I just give you the number and it gets converted into crypto and goes to your wallet immediately.
Exactly. That's exactly what I think needs to happen, right?
Yeah. So I don't need to create a wallet. MasterCard, my credit card has a wallet automatically created for me.
Right. And they're kind of custodial in that way. I mean, of course, they're a business, so they're going to be taking.
That's the question, though.
The same
do we
fees.
stay at the 3.5%, or does that become negotiable? I don't know. We'll see.
Well, in a lot of these companies, I think they're really trying to keep things they're trying to simplify their business models across the board, because like any complexity to the system starts to throw flags. So even in the cases that these mass merchant accounts, they're really, when you get a Stripe account, you're not even getting your own merchant account. It's not a merchant account. It's actually, there's a phrase for it. It's called inter something. Someone can correct me on that, but you're actually just jumping into a group, a cohort of other businesses all using that same merchant ID. So you have an account with Stripe, you do not actually have your own, your actual merchant processing account. Now, if you go to like NMI or authorize.net or any of those, you're getting a real.
They're more expensive.
And they're very difficult to use. Their interfaces are a disaster. It's like, but the fees are often way less. Like you're paying Stripe a pretty significant improvement. They can be much less depending on, who you're working with.
Authorize.net, those guys had a monthly fee. They want volume. They want people who are doing a lot of payments. Yeah,
right. But yeah, I mean, I think with Stripe, you can also do like custom pricing, and actually we were able to, in our case, if anyone's using Stripe right now and you've been with them for a while, you can just go ask them for a discount, and you can just say, hey, can I talk to my sales team, or talk to your sales team and get
like on the
review.
Rates that you pay them?
Yeah. So I probably shouldn't reveal what our actual rate is some type of lead in, but I'm saying we've saved probably 30% on Stripe fees by having good standing with Stripe and being in a relatively low risk category of software subscriptions. And all you have to do is ask, like, is our first year in business, I think, we're like, hey, what can we do about pricing? And they dropped it pretty soon. So, I mean, that's tens of thousands of dollars a year.
Totally. And Stripe was an early investor in Stellar, so it's very likely that they're going to move the payment rails to XLM.
That's great. Maybe that'll be the one change.
And I think when my account got reinstated with Stripe, it happened on the exact day that they issued a press release that they were now crypto friendly. So I think they intentionally had an anti-crypto policy for a reason they didn't share, and that changed late last spring. And so I think it's in preparation for digital assets.
Did you get your account back?
Mm-hmm.
You did?
Yep.
Okay. So just one day you were not.
I will never, this is why I don't like the word crypto, probably. Like, that caused me so much grief.
Yeah.
At that point, that word does not appear anywhere.
Yeah. Digital payments, blockchain only.
Correct. Right? Yes.
So, but I guess blockchain Cougars doesn't have quite the same.
No. And crypto Cougars has gone to rest. We're doing other things now, but yes. And even the stuff that I do now, I'm very intentional that I don't like the word crypto. partly because it has like a connotation to it, but it's keyword trigger for people and for formerly Stripe.
Totally. Actually, I think that's a big aha moment for me. And I think solidifies that concept that like, that's one of the first things that needs to change for mass adoption.
Correct.
We need to stop calling it crypto because
Correct.
it's not doing us any favors.
I agree. If it's just digital payments, which will sound like what we already have, it won't sound weird. So
yeah, I agree.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much. This was great. We really wanted to find out what's going on in the world of online businesses taking crypto. It sounds like we're a little early. We need to get the user experience better and mass adoption. We need to rebrand the word crypto. Anything else you feel like you would like to see happen before your business and your clients' businesses can take on digital payments at scale?
No, I think that's
Regulation,
most of it.
maybe?
But I think there's just so much. If anyone is here and you've not experienced the beauty of what the digital currency space has to offer, it's like this nirvana space for payments. It's like this perfect ideal of how things could be great, and it's not perfect yet. It's not there. But I think if we all give good vibes and try to progress things, and even building cryptocurrency payments into Dropfunnels was like, there's no benefit to me to do it, but it's like, it's just my push to try to make the world a more digital payments world closer, to bring it closer to us. So I think we all should just do our part as much as we can to, from a technology perspective, for platforms like mine and others to make it digital payment friendly. I got to stop saying crypto, so I got to retrain my brain, but I'm excited for what the next 2 rounds of Moore's Law brings to us.
Now, if someone's watching this and wants to sort of find out more about Dropfunnels, what's the best place for them to go? And what type of person is Dropfunnels really set up to serve?
Sure. So yeah, dropfunnels.com is a place. There's a free trial if someone wants to give it a go.
Okay.
But essentially it's really best for people selling information or digital products. So
Okay.
it's not for e-commerce. I'd say go to Shopify, for that. But if you're selling digital products and you want to increase your average customer value, selling through a sales funnel is one of the most powerful ways. But you can also build your website, because we're built on WordPress, your website, your digital courses for digital delivery and memberships, your blog, sales pipelines, and of course, sales funnels as well. And that within that integration, you'll see the coin payments option to be able to collect crypto.
Awesome.
But even that, I think, is going to have to change over time, because there's still a slight bit of that pass, right? Over, like, I still have to go to my wallet. I still have to approve it. And so as soon as we can get rid of wallets and seed phrases and all that kind of stuff, then I think that'll become very synonymous, as almost all sales funnels will be focused on crypto payments. So if anyone has questions, can always reach out to me. I'd be happy to support.
Awesome. Thank you, Jordan. I really appreciate you taking the time to join me today.
My pleasure. Thanks, Molly.
All right. Take care.